Shedeur Sanders and the Browns enter their second week of OTAs. The young quarterback fighting for a roster spot, maybe eventually fighting for the starting job. His dad, Dion, went on the Say What Needs to Be Said podcast with Asante Samuel and addressed reports that Shedeur wasn't prepared for meetings ahead of the NFL draft. We've all heard those whispers that caused him to fall to the fifth round. Here was Dad.
When you sit up there and say something like, he went in a meeting unprepared, like, dude, Shedeur Sanders, who's had 6 different coordinators, who has still functioned and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're gonna tell me situation. You're gonna tell me he had on headphones. Shedeur, anybody know my son, understand he's a professional. Like, he's gonna go into a meeting with headphones on. Like, y'all come on, man.
It's a really complicated issue because here's the bottom line of it, and I'll give it to the group. In fact, Peter, I'll start with you as our insider. He was a complicated evaluation. There was no one, and my job as the host of the draft is to aggregate all of the opinion that exists. There was no one who had him falling to the fifth round. No one. And I remember the line some would say, well, if his name was Shedeur Jones, he might fall to the third round. He fell to the fifth round. If his name had been Shedeur Jones, maybe he would have gone in the third round, but it worked out in the opposite direction. So when you hear Dion saying this stuff, what do you think about around the league?
32 teams passed on Shedeur Sanders, including the Cleveland Browns, who took a quarterback in the third round before taking Shedeur Sanders, including the Pittsburgh Steelers, who just completely waited until the sixth round to take a quarterback, and of course, including the Las Vegas Raiders, who have an owner in Tom Brady, who at the very least has served as a mentor and sort of a person that he goes to for advice. Here's the bottom line. All that is a race now, except it's really not, because he's the fourth quarterback on the depth chart. And they just had OTAs, and there was glowing reviews from everyone in the media, and we're tracking his passes. But Shedeur Sanders still has to come in and earn every single thing. Do I think the reports about him being ill-prepared? Look, I don't have anyone on record telling me he was wearing headphones. I don't have anyone on record telling me personally that he was on a FaceTime call, which is something that you read about in the media. I don't have those stories. What I do have is that, you know what, we're good. We don't need Shedeur Sanders. We don't need all of that in our room. But all that is gone now. He's a Cleveland Brown now.
Right. I agree. Here's what's interesting to me. Like, I was on record for months saying I thought he was either the second or third best quarterback, bottom of the first, maybe top of second, worst case scenario. But the NFL is the ultimate meritocracy, and every team is dying for a good young quarterback. And they saw something in the pre-draft process. Bart, you may disagree, but that's the facts, the reality. Look, we drafted Laramie Tunsil with a gas mask. We have signed players off of suspension. Right, and that worked out great. So I'm saying this is a league of second chances and forgiveness.
What?
There was some massive disc. But Bart,
are we going to consider headphones with a gas mask?
But I'm just
making a point.
My point is this, Bart. When you look at the objective facts, he didn't go in the fifth round. Some disconnect happened in the pre-draft process. There's no other way to explain it. It's just, now look, with that said, he could turn it all on its head. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. He could start on opening day. So, like, this is the beginning of the story. But, Bart, the reality is 32 teams had an opinion, and he won in the 5th round.
At least 5 of them was wrong, right? Because they need a quarterback in the best way. He can, you talk about from extremes. You said fighting for a roster spot to potentially being a starter.
Right.
Like, what do we do? It's a lot of in between. So you mean to tell me that that's a 5th-round pick?
No,
you used to tell me a lot of stuff. But one of the things you used to tell me was production breeds tolerance. His college production breeds tolerance. And it maybe not the first round tolerance, maybe not the second round, but come on, the third round. I mean, come on. The Jets, I mean, you're going to put all your faith in Justin Fields reviving his career, knowing that Jordan Travis potentially was going to retire from football. You understand, if you're the Saints, you understand that Carr is going to retire from football. You wouldn't throw something against the wall in the 4th round. Those are throwaway picks. Half of those guys don't even make your roster. So I think it's laughable that that so many teams passed on him over and over again.
So why do you
half
think
of the 4th round?
That's the question.
Because they cut their nose to spite their face. Whatever statement they were trying to make, a lot of those guys that made those picks, I guarantee you at least 3 or 4 of them is going to be unemployment line. It's going to be because they didn't find a quarterback that they were looking for, whether general manager or head coach.
You said that the league league is the ultimate meritocracy. And generally speaking, I agree with you. But in this case, it doesn't seem to be the case, right? No one doesn't think he was good enough to have been drafted well higher than he was. So there was some outlier here. There was some sort of different circumstances that created what wound up happening.
Yeah, it was, look, the Deion thing might not have been, hey, I'm scared that Deion's going to take my job or that Deion's going to end up.
Shame on you if that even.
Deion Sanders he didn't have an agent during this process. So he's coming out there, and we're hearing stories about, hey, I don't necessarily know where he's going to end up. I don't know where we want him to go here. He's wearing cleats that say the New York Giants on him at a bowl game bar. There are things that were different. It's a different prospect.
You deserve to be fired if you're afraid of a man taking your job, so you don't take his
So
son.
why is Shedeur Sanders not so offended, but everyone else is? Deion seems to be very upset in that sense.
Because he's in a moment. His only job is to prove them wrong.
And Shedeur's been amazing because Shedeur said, I'm not motivated by them. I'm motivated by myself.
He's not going to tell you.
People were crying on television in RC, crying on television that Shedeur Sanders was prank called. That same night, Shedeur Sanders was out at a club enjoying himself because he got drafted by a team. I think people are very sensitive about Shedeur. Shedeur's just taking it as it is and is going to prove a lot of people wrong.
He's not going to show you the outside stuff, the inside stuff outside. His job is to show that everything is okay here and still project that confidence.
And
His
if he
father
doesn't play,
is
is
supposed
everyone
to speak
else
for him.
wrong because he doesn't play? If Flacco's getting the reps or if Dylan Gabriel beats him out, it could happen. They drafted Dylan. Is everyone else just an idiot because that happened?
Yes. And you don't believe
But,
that.
you know, guys, here's the facts. Like, all of us in the media who watched the film had him somewhere between the first, maybe the third. There was some disconnect in the pre-draft process.
Right.
I think Peter's making an interesting nuanced point. When you have an agent, you're getting active feedback that you could react to. Maybe you go back in for another visit. There was some disconnect in the pre-draft process, Gree. There's no other way to reconcile his ability and the result of what happened.
Right. And so what?
It's just disgusting.
It's disgusting because there's no way that his talent means that he should have got picked in the 5th round. And that's shame on everybody else that didn't pick him because of whatever reason it was.
Our next game is called Sound Off. They are interesting people saying interesting things around the NFL. Let's start in Dallas. Their new head coach, Brian Schottenheimer, was talking about the dynamic between his two wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens.
I think it's great for CD to have someone like George, not that George is a young player, but someone that GP really looks up to in CD. They obviously have trained some together, but that relationship's really cool, and I'm enjoying kind of just sitting back and watching it develop.
I think George Pickens is a young player, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
I think in the same conversation, Bart, that we just had about basketball, about how might being around LeBron James rub off on Luka Doncic, and I'm not comparing the people involved. CeeDee Lamb is not LeBron James, but the idea of someone who obviously has done it at the highest level and been great and been a professional and all that kind of stuff. I think that there is a chance that this George Pickens acquisition, particularly in the last year of his career, winds up being great, and the Cowboys wind up being much better than most people are projecting.
I think this is a perfect storm. I think, both can be each other's rabbit, right? Because CD wants to prove that he's the number one, and you got Pickens that wants to say, hey, I'm just as good. And for everybody that says, Pickens could be a problem, distraction, he acts his way out, and all those things, Shotty is the perfect guy for it. I mean, he was the same guy that had Santonio Holmes and Braylon Edwards, guys who were ostracized from their previous teams and came there and played in perfect harmony. I think this Dallas Cowboys team is a sleeper because of their ability to be able to take shots down the field, and they built through the offensive line. TB knows something about that. They're going to run the ball, take shots, and they have the ultimate weapon in CeeDee Lamb, who can run the whole route tree.
And just take that a step further, Green, as you allude to, Santonio Holmes and Braylon Edwards were in the last year of their deal. You have a highly motivated George Pickens. And the one thing that Shotty probably wanted to get to in that piece was he's a point scorer. And when you have two physical guys like CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens in a compressed part of the field, that tends to lead to scoring points, which is something you want to do when you're in the last year of a deal.
I've been bullish on this since the day it was made. We were here the morning that this trade went down, and I think I was the lone voice here saying, I love this because of exactly what you guys are saying. Motivated individual. He's 24 years old, got a huge upside, final year of his contract, and oh, by the way, he has been publicly dragged in the media for the last 2 months by everyone outside of his own building saying that this guy was a cancer, he's a problem, he's cantankerous. I think if you can't perform now, knowing what could be at the end of the rainbow, it might not happen for him. So to me, George Pickens to Dallas, where he doesn't have all that pressure, I think it's a great spot.
Explain it too. What's at the end of that rainbow is a pot of gold. You talking about you telling a 24-year-old kid that, hey, if you ball out, keep your nose straight, you're going to potentially get $100 million in a place with no state taxes, man. Come on, man.
But here's my only perceived with caution. Like, Mike Tomlin knows what a football player looks like, and he decided to pay DK Metcalf $30 million, and he let George Pickens graduate. So,
but it's the same guy. Listen, I don't know what is going on in Pittsburgh. One thing you can count on in Pittsburgh, they can draft a pass rusher and a receiver. But it's the same team that let Plesko Burrs go. He went and won a Super Bowl. Let Santonio Holmes go. He had success when he left, right? Emmanuel Sanders. So listen, I don't know why they can't keep their receivers.
So one way or another, I think we all are saying essentially the same thing. It's relatively low risk, considering what they give up for it, and potentially very high reward, which I think is really good. The other thing about the Cowboys is, and you'll learn this as you spend more time with us here, we tend to talk about them a lot. And so when that means that the pendulum is really heavy, right? The more you pile onto it, so it swings too far in one direction and too far in the other. When the Cowboys are good, maybe we overstate how good they are. When they're bad, when they have a down year, we overstate how bad they are. This team won 7 games without their quarterback last year. Dak was hurt. And Graziano made the point last week. In an offseason where every team was trying to get better at quarterback, the Cowboys are adding Dak Prescott. Speaking of whom, he's another one we go too far. Just because he's not one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL, half the time the conversation is Dak Prescott is terrible. He's the farthest thing in the world from terrible. He's an excellent, well above average NFL quarterback who, if anyone is going to be able to take advantage of these 2 guys, he's got as good a chance as anyone. They add good players on the offensive line. I think the Cowboys are going to surprise a lot of people this year.
Yeah, Green, I agree. He has to stay healthy. 2 of the last 3 years, he's missed a lot of time. And on the other side of the ball, same theory. DeMarvion Overshown and Trayvon Diggs both coming off of injury. So, and they added a few other pieces, Solomon Thomas and Dante Fowler.
I'd say the negative, of course,
Say
is
Solomon Thomas with a straight face.
You're talking about Solomon Thomas. He wasn't on the Jets starting line. We go big on this. Look, I would just say this. I know you guys, you played for Shoddy, you worked with Shoddy. There is a question that for 25 years, Shoddy's been in football. This is the first time he's getting a head coaching opportunity. Everyone's over the moon in Dallas on it. They didn't do a full coaching search. They did not. They said, Mike McCarthy's contract's going to run out. We're going to miss that whole first wave. We're not even going to entertain Ben Johnson. We're not even going to entertain Kellen Moore. This was Shoddy's job from the go, and that was what it is. And they might be right, but I think it's fair as an outsider who didn't work with Shoddy and covers the league to say, let's see how that first year in Dallas with a big spotlight goes.
Yeah, Peter, I see that differently because when you're running an organization and you see somebody every day, that's a job interview each and every day. So I don't think they just said, hey, well, Mike's contract's expiring. What do we do? I think they felt good about it. And Green, we talked about this last week. Obviously, Dak had to sign off on it, and Shoddy has a great track record with quarterbacks.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And to some degree, having a relationship with Jerry Jones is probably the most important criteria for getting a job in that organization.
Would you have not liked to have seen a full coaching search with the 10 guys being interviewed, or you thought that was not orthodox? You have to admit that.
Of course it wasn't.
But why waste people's time? If you think you have your guy, you go with Shoddy. You know what type of brand of football you're going to get. You're going to get the evolution of Marty Ball, right? And I think that's really how the league is going now. Being able to run the football, take shots, get explosive plays. He's a master at that. He inherited it in his DNA.